Hey guys, Jenny again, and we're going to be talking about today the card of the Empress from the Major Arcana. Before we talk about this card, I'm going to ask you to please hit that bell, hit subscribe, so that way you're notified every time I give you new content. So let's get to it. The Empress. So the next stop on the Fool's journey is the Empress, and she is the embodiment of the mother figure. She is a card that's about creativity, fertility, and successful ventures. She is a goddess also of agriculture, but we're going to get to that in a second. Some of the imagery that comes up on the card with the Empress is, one, for starters, she too also wears a crown. Her crown is made up of 12 stars that represent the 12 zodiac signs in the night sky. And this is supposed to represent her rule over, or her domain over, the cycle of the year. So she is also a goddess of cycles. Her throne lays resides in a field of grains, like wheat and barley and stuff like that. These grains, this is supposed to be a representation of agriculture and the representation of productivity and fertility, right? Because you don't get these grains and the barley by themselves. You've got to really work hard. You've got to be productive. You've got to take care of them from gestation all the way through to crop. So in this case, she would also not only represent agriculture, but the embodiment and growth of the natural world's fertility. When it comes to the idea of agriculture and the idea of growing things, this card again reflects that imagery of motherhood, because mothers tend to grow things like little people. No, not leprechauns, but tiny little babies. They're little people. Little people. Unlike the High Priestess, who is the connection between the subconscious and the conscious, the Empress is already in the conscious. And so what she does is she takes the idea that now has the vessel from the High Priestess, and then she plants that idea, right? Just like the seed is planted into the mother's womb, the Empress plants the seeds of ideas and intent and allows them to grow. So this is how she differs with the High Priestess as well. She is wearing a white dress with red pomegranates all over it, right? Pomegranates, that's a really weird symbol, but pomegranates have a ton of seeds in them. Honestly, I don't know why people like them, because it takes way more time to eat them and way more effort because of the thousands upon thousands of seeds that are in there. But hey, people like them, right? But this image of pomegranates is twofold. One, the pomegranates show that the Empress is the life of thousands, right? She is the giver of life for thousands, i.e. the thousands of seeds. But also there is that imagery of Persephone and how Persephone ate some of the pomegranate seeds. She ended up getting stuck with Hades 6 times, 6 months out of the year. The pomegranate is associated with Persephone. Persephone comes back during spring when plants are gestating and coming out of the soil, and it's got their first leaves. Again, in this case, we are also playing on the imagery of the goddesses in the past. There is a heart-shaped shield at the foot of the Empress, and this heart-shaped shield represents the protection that only love can provide. Interestingly enough, there's also the symbol of Venus, or more well known, the symbol of the female, right? The female symbol. We'll get to that Venus symbol here in a little bit. But let's talk about firstly what this card may represent if it appears in the reverse. So this card could represent infertility. It could represent a lack of success or a lack of production. It could also talk about disruptions in the home or even delays in creative projects and insecurity. Now, a quote from Manly P. Hall in his book, The Secret Teachings of All Ages. He writes, "She is called generation and represents the threefold spiritual world out of which proceeds the fourfold material world." Now, how is this important? She is the mother of the Fool, in which case, as said before, the Fool goes from being just potential energy to being a real baby, being a real concept, being a real person. And so then the Empress becomes the doorway through which ideas, people go through to get into our 3D material world and our 3D existence. Now, because of this identification with gateways and doorways, one of the Kabbalic teachings does tell us that she is, in fact, the gateway. The Hebrew word for, or the Hebrew letter for this would be D. The Greeks would call it delta. The Hebrews called it dalet. And it translates to doorway because, again, the Empress is the doorway of which life can pass through. And relatively so, all creativity, all of creation goes through several doorways before it becomes perfected. So the Empress is really just first of many gateways the Fool must enter in order, or pass through, in order to continue on, right? In order to find that perfection within himself. So going back to that Venus symbol, okay? The goddess is a representation of the planet Venus. This is her symbol. This is her sign. Venus was the Roman goddess of love and creativity and passion. The Greeks called her Aphrodite. And again, when you think of love and you think of, that motherly love, that healing love, you think of, the colors of pink and green, and of course, the Empress. Now, Venus is considered both the evening star and the morning star because you can see Venus only during the time of dusk or during the time of dawn. So yes, Venus is known as the morning star, and I hope some of you understand that imagery a little bit better now. Now, Venus is the ruler over two different zodiac signs. We've got Taurus and Libra, and she's also the ruler of two different houses. The second house, which talks about treasures and possessions, as well as the seventh house, which talks about marriage and family. As the ruler of Taurus in the second house, this shows us what it is we love. What are the things? What are the possessions? The material world? What are the things that we love? Libra in the seventh house shows us how we share that love with others. And the Empress's involvement, or Venus's involvement, can lead to strong attachments to people or even things. Now, other correspondences with the Empress. Numerically, we have the number 3. She is an element embodiment of Earth. Her zodiac signs would be Taurus and Libra. Her planet would be Venus. I think I said that one already. And the day of the week would be Friday. Remember, we were talking about colors, and some of those colors would be, like I said, pink or like rose kind of colors, emeralds, turquoises, peridot, and then gemstones would be rose quartz, emeralds, and turquoises. Green would be a color. And the goddesses of Danu or Demeter or Brigid Or even if we talk about the love, the love aspect of it, we can go right back to Venus and Aphrodite and Persephone. But she is more of, as a holistic embodiment of goddesses, I would straight think Danu or Demeter. And if you wanted to work with this card in any depth or detail, you would use this card for things like new creativity or planting seeds and intent of ideas, fertility, these kinds of things. So definitely take a look in your week this week and see how the Empress comes into play for you. Write it down, journal it, and if it's not too possible or not too personal, let me know in the comments and we can have a great discussion on what the Empress means and embodies for you and in your world. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I thank you very much for listening. Next week, we will be doing the Emperor, so stay tuned. Namaste, and God bless.